Welcome back. The management of MTN Foundation believes that arts and culture can be a unifying tool and a way to preserve cultural heritage. That's the basis for the MTN Theatre for Schools, a pilot project with secondary school students competing on stage. 3 schools were shortlisted during the competition for the grand finale in Lagos.
The lights have been dimmed for theatre. Finalists: Idiko Comprehensive College Ibadan, Nigerian Navy Secondary School Port Harcourt, and Vital Years Secondary School Zaria, here to compete for the MTN Theatre for Schools crown. The script is an adaptation of Sefi Atta's The Naming Ceremony, and the audience watches with rapt attention as they take the stage.
By the way, any strange person you meet today is from their family. You were rascal since when you were small. And I think you are still rascal. You are making it look as if I didn't learn it from you. I came to see baby. You laugh, Mama. You laugh again. You say Then you have to go.
There's more entertainment before winners are announced. Vital Years Secondary School Zaria takes first position and gets a check of 1 million naira. Idiko Comprehensive College Ibadan gets 500,000 naira as runner-up, and Nigerian Navy Secondary School Port Harcourt in third position gets 250,000 naira.
There's nothing more that will bring children back together again to the old acting. We used to act in our days.
We had 12 schools. It's just amazing seeing how each team interpreted the script, how they delivered, and all the extra icing on the top and everything.
Definitely the winners are going to be part of our plans in order to continue supporting them, and really they can climb up and be becoming like part of the national artists.
This is the first ever MTN Theatre for Schools competition. It started with just 3 states, Oyo, Kaduna and Rivers, and is set to expand to other states in time, hopefully giving birth to Nigeria's future stars of the stage.
The former Minister of Science and Technology, Mr. Obunayanu, is wooing the Japanese government to invest in Nigeria's science and technology sector. He's also assuring them of the federal government support in this regard. The former minister made the appeal when he received the special envoy of the Japanese Prime Minister at his residence in Abuja. He stressed that the federal government is working to move Nigeria's economy from a dependency state to one that is driven by knowledge and innovation.
Here in Nigeria, we are now working very hard to move our economy away from depending entirely on resources, on commodities, to depend on knowledge and innovation. So this gives a tremendous opportunity for Nigeria and Japan to work together, to cooperate, because this will strengthen this new drive, new direction that we are undertaking, and it will be definitely of mutual benefits to both countries. Though Nigeria has many political parties, but we now have 2 very strong political parties, and this is something that gives us joy and makes us and also the rest of the world know that democracy is now very stable and has matured in Nigeria.
The Bankers Committee of the CBN has announced a new partnership and has details of that and other stories on Business News.
You First. First Bank.
Thank you, Melinda, and welcome to Business News. The Bankers Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has announced plans to partner with the Pension Commission of Nigeria just to provide housing for Nigerians. At a meeting in the nation's capital, Abuja, a member of the committee, Mrs. Hamda Amba, explains how the scheme will work for the benefits of all. Members of the committee also announced the implementation of its intervention to the nation's creative sector and sustaining its campaign for final inclusion.
Since the Pension Reform Act was promulgated in 2004, we now have over 9 trillion naira worth in the money under management in that industry. And we understand that the pensions industry, through the regulator, is looking at releasing up to 25% of that sum to make it possible for the owners of the fund, the RSA holders, to use this money as equity injection to be able to access mortgages. And if you think about it, 25% of 9 trillion is well over 2 trillion naira. And if this can be used to really stimulate demand and create mortgage loans in our economy, and it was agreed that the central bank would talk to fellow regulators and also talk with governors of various states to make the whole process of maybe land transfer and title and so on a lot easier, so that many more people across the nation can access mortgage financing.
Stanbic IBTC Asset Management Limited, FBN Capital, and Asset and Resource Management Limited, ARM, are in the lead of fund managers with the highest assets under management, and that's according to the figures from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The combined holdings of the mutual fund, which are known as its portfolio, accounted for around 85% in 741 billion naira in total mutual funds. Stanbic IBTC Asset tops 23 other fund managers with 329.8 billion naira net asset value, representing 45% of the total mutual funds, and 11 different funds across 7 asset classes as at May the 24th. FBN Capital Asset Management, the subsidiary of FBN Quest, emerged the second biggest fund manager with 173.4 billion naira net asset value and 6 different funds across 7 asset classes, while ARM is third with 63.8 billion naira and 4 funds. Well, red is the color for the day, not just for me, but for the local stock market as well. It hasn't been exciting news for the NSE since the start of June. Investors have resumed from the Democracy Day holiday, but with some sell mandates. Layo Adegoke has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Despite marginal gains recorded across 4 sectors of the NSE, the stock market ended Thursday's session still in the red as equities struggled to break a 6-day losing streak in the new month. The downturn in today's session is attributed to profit-taking on the industrial goods counter, which fell by 0.55%, particularly on the back of 1.08% drop in the share price of NSE's most capitalized stock, Dongote Cement. Although the cement giant had the most significant impact on the market, the share pricing of CNI Listen topped a list of 15 laggards, down by 9.87% at 6 naira 30 kobo, while GlaxoSmithKline led a pack of 14 gainers, up by 9.15% at 8 naira 35 kobo. Tier 1 lenders GT Bank, Zenith Bank and UBA emerged as top 3 contributors to a total of 242.61 million shares traded in 3,153 transactions. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Well, let's talk about oil prices now. They have risen as much as 4% today, partially reversing the deep slump in crude futures following attacks on 2 tanker ships in the Gulf of Oman near Iran. The attacks, which occurred near the Strait of Hormuz, that's the world's busiest sea lane for oil shipments, is coming out against the backdrop of heightened tension between the U.S. and Iran. International oil prices benchmark Brent crude jumped 2.1% to $61.31 a barrel at around 8:30 p.m. local time. Analysts are saying that oil prices could still rise between about $50 and $80 a barrel for Brent on Middle East tensions, but that is if the trade war tension dim economic outlook for the buyers of oil. It's mixed close for the major stock markets around the world today, following a mixture of strong gains from Disney and energy shares, and that's at the surge in oil prices. Here are some figures for today. And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Melinda.
You first. First Bank.
Many thanks, and let's hope we'll be seeing more green numbers tomorrow. The U.S. has blamed Iran for what it calls a blatant assault on 2 oil tankers in the Gulf region. The comment was made by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who also says the assessment is based on intelligence about the type of weapons used, the level of expertise, and the fact that no proxy group operating in the area has the men and machines to act with such a high degree of experience. For more international stories, here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. 2 oil tankers have been hit by explosions in the Gulf of Oman. Taiwan's state oil refiner says one of them was a suspected torpedo attack. 44 people were evacuated from both ships. 23 were on board the Front Altair, owned by Norway's Frontline company, and 21 were on the Kokuka Courageous, sailing under a Panama flag. It comes just a month after 4 oil tankers were targeted off the United Arab Emirates. On Twitter, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said the latest incident happened as Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was meeting the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, adding suspicious doesn't begin to describe what likely transpired this morning. The attacks could also escalate tensions between the US and Iran. The Supreme Leader told the Japanese Prime Minister President Trump isn't capable of holding an honest exchange.
ما معتقدیم که از طریق مذاکره با آمریکا هیچ مشکلی حل نخواهد شد. آمریکایی‌ها بیشترین دشمنی رو که می‌توانستن با ما بکنن کردن و دارن ادامه میدن. مذاکره زیر فشار رو هیچ ملتی ملت آزادی قبول نمی‌کنه.
In the UK, Boris Johnson has come up trumps in the first round of the Conservative Party leadership contest and bid to be Prime Minister.
Brexit is unstoppable.
The former Foreign Secretary secured the most support with 114 votes. Jeremy Hunt was second with 43. 3 contenders were knocked out, leaving 7 people in the race. The next ballot will be held on Tuesday. Police have defended their actions following violent clashes in Hong Kong. Tens of thousands of protesters staged a demonstration to prevent the second reading of a controversial extradition bill. Authorities condemned the behavior of what they described as a hostile crowd. 11 people were arrested and 22 officers were injured.
We try our best to avoid confrontation, to let them express their view. Even they occupy the main thoroughfare of Hong Kong. Not until in the field court that they start to use weapons to charge our cordon lines that we have to respond.
But activists criticized police for using extreme force, saying they fired rubber bullets, tear gas and pepper spray at people who are trying to protest peacefully.
We think that they're trying to oppress our rights of expressing our opinion and actually oppressing the freedom.
Dozens of police officers have been injured in the state of Tennessee following a fatal shooting there. Violence erupted after US Marshals shot and killed a man in Memphis who was wanted on numerous warrants. His death triggered clashes, forcing officers to call riot police for backup. The number of people murdered in Mali earlier this week has been revised down. Initially, officials said the bodies of 95 people had been found after attackers raided a Dogon village. The government now says at least 35 people were killed, and the previous figure included those who were missing. The United Nations Security Council has been told more needs to be done to prevent rival ethnic killings.
Le cycle infernal de la violence qui se poursuit doit être arrêté au risque que chacun soit tenté de se faire justice lui-même. C'est le lieu de souligner l'importance de la lutte contre l'impunité.
Heavy rain and flooding across several provinces in southern China continue to take their toll. Dozens of people have been killed and many more are still missing. China's Disaster Reduction Committee says more than 7,000 houses have collapsed and more than 300,000 people have been evacuated from flooded areas. Direct economic losses are estimated to be at $1.4 billion. Amanda Knox, who was convicted and then acquitted of manslaughter following the death of the British student Meredith Kercher, has returned to Italy for the first time since she was freed in 2011. The American was 20 years old when she was sentenced to 26 years in prison. She served 4 years before being released after multiple appeals and trials. Ahead of her trip, she said she was nervous about returning. She's there to speak at a criminal justice festival and will appear on a panel called Trial by Media. And finally, you may have heard the phrase built like a tank. Well, a Russian motor enthusiast has turned a car into just that. And it's not just any car, it's a Bentley Continental GT. It's been fitted with tank treads, and incredibly, it works. Nicknamed Ultra Tank, it took 9 months to build and reaches a top speed of 31 miles per hour. The creators are hoping to be able to double that speed with further alterations in the future. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thank you, Simon. Still ahead on the news at 10. Real Madrid unveiled their latest star with the presentation of Belgian midfielder Eden Hazard to fans at the Santiago Bernabeu. That's in sports news. Join us again.